Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Bishwajit Ghosh, Professor of Sociology from the University of Bardhaman, West Bengal. I am also the coordinator of the paper called Social Movement, under which this module comes. The title of this module is Dalit Movement and Backward Caste Assertion in India. Obviously, this module deals with two broad types of social movement. It would analyze Dalit movement, its origin, and look into the issues that has given rise to such a movement, and then it would also go for a historical review of the kinds of oppression that the Dalit has overgone and the types of reaction that the Dalit leadership has particularly developed due to that kind of oppression. And finally, it would come to discuss the contributions of leaders like Ambedkar in order to develop and sustain that movement. And finally, we will be talking about the backward caste assertion in a country like India. Now, the rationale for combining these two movements is that both these movements are in fact arguing against caste oppression. So therefore, it was thought beneficial to combine the way Dalits look into the caste and the way backward caste people look into the issues of caste. Let me now begin with the Dalit issue. Dalits occupy the lowest position in the caste hierarchy based on ritual purity and occupation. They have been oppressed throughout the recorded history of India. The Marathi term Dalit means split or broken personality. It was first proposed by some Marathi speaking literary writers in the Maharashtra in 1960s in place of terms like Harijan or Ochyut. Legally, there is no untouchability in a country like India, but even now Dalits bear the stigma of being untouchable. Voices against such discrimination prevailing in the hierarchical caste system have been raised from time to time, both by Dalits as well as by other social reformers. Dalits are also called as Periyal, Panchama, Atishudra, Antaja or Namoshudra in different parts of the country. Their touch and sometimes their shadows and even their voices are believed to pollute upper caste Hindus. It has now been recognized that the term Dalit has attained hermeneutic ability to refer to the exploitative past of the scheduled caste. The term has the ontological ability to encompass within itself all the oppressed and exploited sections of society, including Adivashis, minorities and women, and therefore the term Dalit is used politically to usher in a much larger unity of the scheduled caste, the minorities, the OBCs and other marginalized, including the tribals and women. Let me now look into the Dalit movement in India. Now, Dalit movement is a struggle that tries to counter-attack the socio-cultural hegemony of the upper caste and to provide a dignity to the oppressed section of the society. Dalits started resisting subjugation and discrimination in two ways. One was peaceful protest, the other was armed struggle. Ambedkar also sought to use constitutional and legal path to assure certain basic rights to them. In the beginning, however, the movement was basically peaceful in the sense they started looking for upliftment of Dalit through certain reformative features. But later on, these movements became transformative in the sense they started arguing for better rights, particularly human rights of Dalits, and started raising much more theoretical and practical issues than they were raising in the initial time. These movements had gained momentum particularly under the guidance of prominent Dalit leader like Jyotiba Phule and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Social religious movements and the Dalits are to be introspected very seriously. Now, if you look into Dalit movement, it can be traced back to several socio-religious movements. This is because Dalits have been organizing socio-religious reform movements from time to time. In 1873, for instance, Jyotiba Phule, a Mali by caste, started the association called Shatya Shodhak Samaj for asserting the oath of man irrespective of caste. Sri Narayana Dharam Paripalana movement in Kerala helped Jatavas both to gain self-respect and to adopt a protest ideology to challenge the religious, economic, educational and political sympathy of the upper caste. The major issues and types of Dalit movement, let me now introspect into this. The major issues around which most of the Dalit movements have been centered in colonial and post-colonial India are confined to the problems of untouchability. In this sense, these movements are predominantly untouchability movement. That means they mainly target the issue of untouchability in a country like India. The issue of increasing or maintaining reservations in elections, government jobs, welfare programs has also concerned the leaders of these movements. Rajini Kothari has argued that the issues of education, employment and special rights remained the dominant strategy of Dalit movement in India. Let me now stress particularly on the contributions of Ambedkar in Dalit movement. It's well known that Ambedkar wrote extensively to construct the Dalit perspective of nationalism and build an anti-Hindu and anti-Gandhian perspective for liberation of the Dalits. He had a different approach and philosophy regarding the emancipation of Dalits. In fact, Ambedkar initially was a Marxist, but later on he argued that Dalits have two enemies. One is capitalist, the other is Brahminism. Therefore, he argued for emancipation of the Dalits both from capitalism and for Brahminism. And he was very sure that relief only from capitalism is not enough for the Dalits. In 1927, at Mahad, he headed thousands of lower caste people to protest against the decision of upper caste to not allowing them to draw water from public wells. He used water of the tank along with other untouchables. In 1929, he began a temple entry campaign. Though these efforts were not very successful, but they attracted the attention of people at large, at the global level too, about the atrocities committed against Dalits in India. The Mahars of Maharashtra, under the leadership of Ambedkar, also initiated the Buddhist conversion movement in the mid-1950s. Ambedkar believed that there was no salvation for the untouchables so long as they remained in the Hindu fold. But Ambedkar was really confused about this strategy because at the end of his life, he in fact converted to Buddhism, and till then he was trying for different strategies so as to argue for the rights of Dalits. Now, after Ambedkar, Dalit movement has taken certain new shape. One significant development is development of Independent Labour Party, which Ambedkar himself has begun in 1939. But after that, the birth of parties like Republican Party of India, Dalit Panther movement, Dalit Shahitya movement, All India Backward SC OBC Minority so and so forth organizations, including the birth of Bahujan Samaj Party, signify the growth of a new kind of movement in India. One interesting phase that took place in 1972 was the birth of Dalit Panther movement. It was through this movement, this Dalit Panther movement, that the combination of the Marxian agenda of class struggle and the Dalit agenda of caste struggle began as a united agenda of the Dalit movement. They were the young, Dalits who were arguing for civil rights, for justice, and obviously they were not in a position to accept any kind of subjugation. The movement in itself not only argued about the rights of Dalits, but it also started arguing about the rights of tribes, non-Buddhist, working class, landless, poor farmers, women, and all exploited. So it was from 1972 onwards that the term Dalit took a political turn and tried to encompass all those who are oppressed. One particular factor that has led to such proliferation of Dalit movement is entry of the Dalits into different kinds of services. For instance, educational service, military service, rise of educational level of the Dalit. Missionaries and other activists and NGOs have also helped the Dalits to come up and rise their action. Along with that, the development of communication facility, publication of press and literature, particularly by Dalits, have been very beneficial in giving rise to a kind of sentiment which we call Dalitism in a country like India. Interestingly, Dalit movement today is a global movement because the Dalits have been able to globalize the issue of caste. they have been able to reach to the global platform to argue that the institution of caste, the practices of inequality and discrimination, the way the Dalits are exploited in a country like India, Dalits have been able to raise it to the global platform. As a result, it is a global discourse today, and Dalit movement has obviously carved a distinct place at the global level. One interesting change that has taken place at the global level because of these efforts is that Dalit movement has entered into a new phase. Earlier it was limited to local struggle, but now they have started raising the issues of global leaders at the global level. The UN has already recognized the Dalit issue. It has formed a committee entitled Elimination of Discrimination, Racial Discrimination and Human Rights Watch. As a result of such global attention, a new committee called the National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights was formed in the year 1998. So the Dalit campaign has reached global level. As a result, there is a new beginning in Dalit movement today. But let me summarize in brief about the success and failure of Dalit movement before I go to discuss the backward class issue. Dalit movement has been successful to raise certain issues that Dalits have been facing since time immemorial. Now we do understand that Dalits are citizens, and we do give recognition to the issues that the Dalits face. Even though there are discriminations here and there, but what has happened, particularly in the context of media globalization, that any atrocity on a Dalit person becomes a lively issue, and there are several persons across the globe who protest against such atrocity. But at the same time, Dalits are fragmented on different lines. One line is class, the other line is educational level. There is a rise of middle class Dalit leadership who also have certain other interests. So this fragmentation on the one hand shows that Dalits are not in a position to put forward a common platform, a unified strength. Even though a Dalit government was formed in one of the major states of India, that is Uttar Pradesh. So at the political level, Dalits are fighting a battle, but due to political participation and due to fragmentation, they are not in a position to present a unified strength to the people who are opposed to Dalit assertion. So there is both success and failure of Dalit movement in India. Let me now go back to the issue of backward class. With the definition of the backward class, even though it is a very contentious issue in the sense that in independent India, the constitution tried to define the socially and educationally backward class of citizens under Article 15(4). But it was violated in the sense that the very purpose of defining backward class was transformed politically in such a way that people who were backward caste were identified as backward class. Point is, the constitution clearly stated that those who are backward so far as caste is concerned should be categorized as scheduled caste. Those who were otherwise backward, tribal groups should be termed as scheduled tribes, and those who do not belong to either of these categories should be termed as other backward classes. Now this OBC means that they are not SCs, they are not STs, but they are classes of people whose economic positions would be their main criterion for deciding their status. And constitution argued for reservation of such poor people who are neither scheduled caste nor scheduled tribe. But when several commissions were appointed, Kalkar Commission, Mandal Commission, ultimately these people have decided that backward class is to be decided also on the basis of caste identity, along with identities based on social indicator like literacy and employment. So as a result of that kind of definition of a backward class, many people who were not backward so far as class position is concerned are incorporated in the term called OBC. Now these OBC, categorizing people as OBC, other backward classes, became a major movement today in the sense they started demanding reservation for jobs. Obviously many of those who have got this OBC status They could improve their economic condition because they could sensitize their lifestyle, follow the lifestyle of upper caste, and could also change their livelihood and other options. Many times, backward castes have tried to bring change through social reform, which does not directly involve contention with upper caste. But in many other times, it has also led to a conflict with the upper caste. In Tamil Nadu, for instance, non-Brahmin youths have mobilized themselves to form political groups as against the Brahmins. Now, Brahmin domination has been one of the major agenda for mobilization of people in many places of India. One could identify several types of backward caste movements in a country like India. One type is, against the Brahmins, and these are basically by non-Brahmin castes. There are also movements led by intermediate and low castes, but at the same time, some of the movements are led by untouchables, mainly against upper and other backward castes. So these types are some of the categories, some of the classes of movements being organized in India. If you recognize some movements by leader's name, we can name 4 types of major movements of backward caste movement in India. One is called Satya Shodhak Samaj. It was founded by a Mali called Jyotirao Gobindarao Phule. The other is founded by Sri Narayana Guru. Its name is Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana Yogna. The other movement is called Self-Respect Movement, and its leaders are Periyar E.V. Ramasamy. Justice Party was also formed, and its founders are T.M. Nayar, P. Thangaraja Chetty, and C.N. Mudaliar. Formation of Satya Shodhak Samaj in Western India by Gobindarao Phule, his full name is Jyotirao Gobindarao Phule. It was a great effort. He not only struggled for improvising the situation of the lower caste, but he also criticized the Brahminical domination in the name of religion. Sri Narayana Guru, who belonged to backward Yatava caste, headed the non-Brahmin movement in Kerala. He established Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana Yogam, and with his effort, its branches were established even outside Kerala. He started many programs for upliftment of the Yatavas to root out the practice of untouchability. With his effort, Narayana Guru was able to transform the untouchable groups into a backward class. The formation of Justice Party was another important event which mobilized backward caste politically in Tamil Nadu. The basic idea behind its formation was that the non-Brahmins realized the importance of literacy as the base of Brahmins' virtual monopoly of government offices. Dr. T.M. Nayar, P. Thangaraja Chetty, and C.N. Mudaliar were the founding fathers of Justice Party. During the second quarter of the 20th century, the self-respect movement introduced a program of non-Brahmin uplift in Tamil Nadu that consisted of a radical critique of social, political, and economic relations. Periyar E.V. Ramasamy was the leader of this movement. It was a popular movement which occurred in Tamil Nadu in 1925. Its main aim was to improve upon the socio-economic conditions of low caste Tamils. Later, it has profound implications. Most of the ruling parties of Tamil Nadu today belong to this group. If you look into some of the backward caste movement, apart from the movement that I have already listed earlier, one could notice the movement of Narayana Dharma Paripalana movement, popularly known as SNDP movement in Kerala, and it was also grounded on the issue of structural reforms in the caste system. The movement was mainly focused on modernization, rejection of traditional occupation, accessibility to the education, employment, and alternative religion. In the subsequent years, various caste associations were formed and they started demanding gains from the government in order to achieve a better situation in social life. Now, many of the backward caste associations were in fact political lobbies. They were basically building pressure on the government in order to demand certain basic rights like greater opportunity for the children of certain caste. They are also organized politically so as to give benefits to the members of their own community. Let me now conclude the discussions on both Dalit movement and Dalit caste assertions. We have seen that Dalits and lower caste people have organized themselves in pursuit of collective interest, and in many places they were very successful. The involvement of these caste organizations in politics has changed their position in hierarchical pattern of Hindu society. No one today would blame a Dalit leader for entering into political arena. They would rather compromise with the Dalits in order to gain vote. So Dalits are a reality, and Dalit supports and consciousness has risen to such an extent that one cannot just rely on compromise formula. One has to accede to the demands of the demands that Dalits are raising. So any atrocity committed on a Dalit or a backward caste person is a major agenda of political discourse today. Caste solidarity and political power helped many Dalits to achieve higher social, economic and political success. In fact, middle class Dalit intellectuals are a political force in India, and they are the ones who are writing books, articles and popularizing the facts of Dalit assertion in order to develop a peculiar identity that was not seen even 20 years back. So both backward and Dalit caste movement, they have been able to challenge Brahminical social order. They have mobilized people towards attaining social and legal rights through protest movements. This has been one of the cardinal point of these movements that we have seen in India during the last 6 or 7 decades. So one can draw a major lesson by reading into the history of Dalit movement and backward class movement in India. The lesson is one cannot deprive a majority and remain in power for long. Dalits are really Bahujan, and they are in a position now to master political supremacy either through this or that means. Even though the major political parties today often give only lip service to the issues of Dalit thing, but they have to recognize that Dalit issues are real issues in political life. So one has to, all political parties of all colors and shades, they have to compromise on this. So obviously you cannot just talk about caste being so prominent in India. Caste has become a prominent issue through such movement because it was one of the major oppressive social institutions in India. So the success of Dalit movement in one sense is against caste, but on the other hand the success also gave rise to caste sentiments and identity. So the way Dalit movement has popularized itself, the way identity of the Dalits and backward classes have become a popular agenda in political discourse, it shows that if one argues against caste, the loyalty of a caste from a different corner becomes important. So the way social life has moved during the last 5-6 decades, one can see the issues which were opposed from one point of view taking a different shape and coming to the forefront of social life in a different fashion. So time has come to argue against caste, and more we argue against caste, the necessity to argue for Dalits assertions, argue for backward caste would become a less priority. I do hope a time would come when we will be able to talk not about caste but about some other basic necessities of social life. Thank you for your patience.